Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Newsbrowse News broadcast. The House Ethics Committee has voted to call Sidanian's Minister François-Philippe Champagne to answer questions regarding his involvement with the Alto high-speed rail project, as reported by the Canadian press. This decision follows concerns over Champagne's connection to the $90 billion project, which aims to connect Toronto and Quebec City. The minister had recused himself from decisions related to the high-speed rail initiative last September, a month after his partner assumed a vice president position at Alto, the Crown Corporation, overseeing the project. While the ethics commissioner has communicated to Champagne that he is not in a conflict of interest, conservative ethics critic Michael Barrett contends that this situation highlights the inadequacy of the country's current conflict of interest regulations. The committee's lengthy debate before the vote underscores the contentious nature of the issue. The federal government has introduced new space launch legislation to regulate and oversee both launches and re-entry from Canadian territory, according to the Canadian press. Transport Minister Stephen McKinnon stated that Canada is currently the only G7 country without its own space launch capabilities, relying heavily on foreign nations like the United States. This dependence leads to costly delays and leaves critical infrastructure vulnerable to external decisions. The new Canadian Space Launch Act aims to enable the launch of satellites and rockets from Canadian facilities for both military and civilian applications, potentially fostering a domestic commercial space industry worth an estimated $40 billion. McKinnon suggested that launches could commence within 2 to 3 years. This initiative builds on a previous government announcement in March to invest $200 million in a 10-year lease on a Canadian-owned launch pad in Nova Scotia. The minister highlighted that enhanced launch capability would bolster Canada's efforts in areas such as telecommunications, mapping, intelligence gathering, wildfire prediction, marine conservation, and Arctic security, providing a crucial Canadian alternative for companies like Telesat. Global News reports that Canadian Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand has formally requested Israel to investigate the killing of a Canadian citizen in Lebanon. The victim, 38-year-old Hassan Haidar from Windsor, Ontario, was reportedly shot in the head by an Israeli drone during its military campaign in Lebanon. Minister Anand directed Global Affairs Canada to issue a formal notice, known as a démarche, to Israeli Ambassador Edo Moed. This was followed by a meeting between Canada's ambassador in Tel Aviv and Israel's foreign ministry. Anand stated that Canada expects a full and transparent investigation into the death, emphasizing its extreme concern for Canada. The minister noted that the conversation with Israel is ongoing, and Canada is very much hoping that they will respond positively to the request. Canada has consistently urged Israel to respect Lebanese sovereignty and protect civilians amid its conflict with the Iran-backed Hezbollah, which is currently observing a 10-day ceasefire. The British Columbia Supreme Court trial of former RCMP officer William Madger, accused of a security offense by working for China, has heard significant testimony. According to the Canadian press, RCMP supped. Peter Tsui testified that in 2018, 3 Chinese police officials, part of a delegation visiting Vancouver and Toronto, went missing for 6 hours during their RCMP-escorted trip to Vancouver. This incident raised concerns among Canadian authorities that the Chinese officials might be attempting to illicitly repatriate someone from Canada. Tsui, a liaison officer in Beijing at the time, highlighted that this event damaged police-to-police trust. The relationship between the two countries' law enforcement had already deteriorated after Canada denied China's request for additional liaison officers in Vancouver in 2017, and further worsened with the December 2018 arrest of Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou. Madger pleaded not guilty to the charge, and his warrantless airport arrest in 2023 was recently ruled unconstitutional. Former Canadian diplomat Michael Kovrig has issued a stark warning regarding Canada's strategy to deepen trade ties with China amid rising tensions and uncertainty with the United States. Speaking at the Future of Business Summit, Kovrig, who was arbitrarily detained by Beijing for over 1,000 days, cautioned that Ottawa's new China strategy is a risky play likely to be poorly received by Washington, potentially jeopardizing critical trade talks like the renewal of the Canada-US-Mexico Agreement, USMCA. He highlighted recent criticism from U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick concerning Canada's deal to import Chinese electric vehicles, emphasizing that the U.S. may perceive such actions as Canada being an unreliable ally. Kovrig argued that China is primarily focused on exporting, making other nations reliant on its cheaper goods, which could lead to strategic vulnerabilities for Canada, as seen with sectors like canola and seafood becoming overly dependent on the Chinese market. He urged Canada to adopt a tightly controlled and restricted approach to trade with China, ensuring any agreements are potentially reversible to mitigate geopolitical leverage. This news comes from Global News. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.